Hello. Hello. Okay, test is good. Good morning and welcome to this webinar. My name is Aldred Boyd, Application Engineer for Micrographics. So today's webinar, Inventor Model States, just some tips and tricks I've sort of picked up along the way, which I'd like to share with you. So just a little bit about the agenda that we've got over here, just a slight introduction. If you've never worked with model states or anything like that, we'll just kind of get to know what model states is and where it can be applied in the Inventor environment. Then setting up the model states. So we're just going to take a look at how to set up those model states over there. And then how to manipulate the model states. So, we can manipulate model states in Excel as well as in Inventor as well. Then if you've never worked with iLogic, we'll just take a quick look. I've just included a little bit about iLogic and model states and how they can work together, as Autodesk has included model states in the iLogic coding as well. So you can work with the two together over there. And then just the conclusion as we go on. Okay, so introduction. So what are model states? Model states, they're a powerful workflow and they were introduced in Inventor 2022. So before that, what we had was something called iParts and iAssemblies. And if you've never worked with that, it's allowed us to do different configurations of the same design. So you would design something, either a part or you design an assembly. And then you'd start, giving different representations of the iAssembly or the assembly or the parts. So things like different material, maybe the length is a bit different, or in an assembly, maybe it was, different configuration, maybe the wheels were different, or the assembly was a little bit wider or something like that. What it did do, it replaced level of detail. So if you are still on 2021 and you've now recently gone into 2022, then you might notice that if you were using levels of detail, then it has disappeared and been replaced by model states. The one nice thing about model states is that the variations exist in one file. So if you have used iParts and iAssemblies, you will have noticed that you'd have to create factory parts. So you'd have your main sort of part of assembly, and then you create all these factory parts, which would create additional files. And trying to manage those can get quite difficult. So with model states, everything is sitting in one sort of container, and that's nice because you don't have to sort of look in different parts and spend a lot of time managing all those different components when everything is in one place. So what are model states in parts? So model states in parts allows us, as I said, to do different configurations of your parts or your sheet metal. How could we use it in sheet metal? We could use it for different stages of bend operations. So, if you wanted to kind of see, okay, right, how is this thing going to get bent up? What's the first bend? What's the second bend? What's the third bend? Then what you can do is you can create different model states for each of those operations and then sort of bend it up over there. It could also be something like your content center components. So that your nuts and your bolts are basically sort of one part, and in those parts you decide, maybe the diameter is going to be 20, 25, 30, 32. The length can be 40, 42, 45, etc. So and maybe there's as the part gets bigger, maybe you take out some chamfers, take out some fillets, so you can suppress different components in it. What it allows you to also do is have different eye properties for each variation or iteration. Now, what this allows you to do is, obviously, if you've got a bolt or if you've got a component and, component A has got a length of 30 millimeters and then component A also has a length of 35 millimeters. So now those are essentially two different parts and they should have two different part numbers. And maybe a different description as well. In the description, you could say, well, this is a M30 by 44, let's make it an M10 by 20, and then maybe M10 by 25. And that could be the description that you've got over there. And as well as your materials. So you can have different materials as well. So in a component you might be creating, you might make one aluminium and you want to make one stainless steel or something like that, or galvanized. So you have got the options to be able to do those different types of configurations depending on what the application is going to do. Okay. So naming standards in model states. Now, when we are designing in Inventor or any actually CAD package, 2D or 3D, The naming standards that you use are quite crucial for efficient design, and also identifying certain components. Think about when you create a part. So when I create a part, yeah, it's a simple block. I do my length, I do my length, I do my width, and then I do my height. Now, if you had to go into Inventor, you'll see that you've got that length, width, and height. When you do dimension it, immediately goes to D0, D1, and D2. Now, if you continue dimensioning, sort of the components of the part, it's going to go up D4, D5, D100, D1023. And when it comes to then sort of changing that component, if you need to know what the length is, or if you need to know what the size of a certain hole is that you've created, you now don't. Because with that, if you look at D399, what does that mean? What part, what is it controlling? Which hole is it controlling in your component? Okay, so that's why we kind of want to standardize naming conventions. Also for the part. So for a part, if you look at a part, that you're going to manufacture, if you've got a good naming standard, you should be able to very quickly identify what that part actually is. Maybe you've put something there for the length and the width because it needs to fit in somewhere quite specifically, or even the material. So by having a good naming standard, you're able to identify exactly what that design is and what its intention is. Now, with your model states, it kind of is the same thing. So, for each model state, you kind of want to know what model state it is, because you might create a part with 10 different model states, and then you want to take that model state and bring it into an assembly. Now, when you bring it into the assembly, which model state do you bring in? If you've named it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or model state 1, model state 2, model state 3, model state 4, and you bring it in, you don't know what it does. You might not know what the material is, the length, the width, the height, if there's anything suppressed. So it's very difficult, and it might be trial and error that you're now putting your part and the correct configuration into your assembly. So that's also a good thing to note. Find a way to do a naming convention for each model state that complies or that reflects what that model is doing in that model state, or the part is doing in the model state. Then what you can also do, and I think this is I've picked this up along the way, is that when you create your first model state name, create something like setup. Okay, so with the setup, you will then go and put all your design changes in. So what am I going to change in this part? Is it going to be the part number, the description, the length, the width? Is it going to suppress these components? I'm going to change the material. So you do that all in your startup, and then you go off to the, to your first model state, and you give that a specific name, like say, for instance, a bolt, M10 by 20. And the second one, M10 by 25, so that you can easily identify what that bolt is. The setup, you kind of keep over there, and you set up everything so that you know that is just the setup. You're not ever going to use it in a design, but is where you start and where you are going to change everything for later manipulation. Why I say this as well is, I've just sort of go back to it. When you do open up a new component, part, or an assembly, you'll see that there's something called primary in your model states. And primary, can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So primary could be your initial state, or primary could be the first state. So it's like, that's the main assembly or the main part. So it can be a bit confusing. So, rather use a word like setup or initial or something like that, where you know that, okay, great guys, this is where you start. And then you could also maybe have a final design where you're going to end. So that is the final design that's actually going to go to the client. We've now released it. It's now out of work in progress, final, there we go. And anything in between the two are maybe just different configurations that you tried and tested, just to see if this is going to work in the design. Maybe you did a different configuration, you did an FEA on it and it failed. Okay, so now you've got to say, okay, right, and you've got to document all this stuff as well. Okay, right, this grade of steel didn't work, so let's try the next one. This grade of steel didn't work, let's try the next one. Okay, because it's failing somewhere, let's maybe put some gussets on it, or some strengthening ribs or anything like that. And then once you've done all of that, then okay, right, there's the final. But maybe for the report, you've got to kind of document what you wanted. Okay. And as I've mentioned before, it just helps identify the model states that are used for that. Okay. So how to set up the model states in a part? So open up your part, right click on the model state. So you'll see there I've got a model states folder. And at the bottom there, or just at the top, you'll see there's primary. So that primary over there, you cannot delete it. You can't rename it. If you're from AutoCAD, it's kind of like layer 0. You can't rename it. You can't delete it, but it's there. We don't really use it. We create our own layers. And for that, you'll just use it for creating blocks, because that's a special layer. But we don't use it in our design. Okay, so once we've done that, we will just create the setup. So we just create that one. I know you can see there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but we just create the one, and we change anything we want: parameters, features, suppress or unsuppress, eye properties, materials. Now, one thing you need to know is the order that you make those changes once you've activated that setup model state is the order that is going to show in your Excel columns. So if I go and I say, okay, right, I'm first going to change my length and my width. And then I change my material, and then I change an eye property like description. It's going to show the columns in that order as well. Okay. So then once you've done that, you can then open that table up in Excel and then add all your additional model states with your variables that you want. And I always say, use Inventor, when you're using a CAD package and you kind of driving the design through an Excel type function, use Excel for Excel type stuff and use your CAD package for CAD stuff. So the modeling, the fillets, the sketching. And when you start having to input a lot of data, which has different configurations, lengths, widths, suppressing, unsuppressing, then use your Excel, because it has got a lot of functionality in it, which is much quicker to compute in Excel, and then you just throw those Excel functionality back into your CAD package. And that, I'm talking about if you're working in AutoCAD, you've got your table function, that's in there, and then for Inventor, it's your model states and eye parts and eye assemblies as well. Okay. To manipulate the model states, okay, so what you can do is just double click on the name, and what you'll see is a little blue pencil will appear next to it. It will only be next to that, if it's only next to one of the model state names that you've got, when you edit anything, it will only edit that model state. It won't edit anything else. Or what you can also do is you click on the little gray pencil right at the top next to the model states folder. You'll see that a blue pencil will then go and appear next to each model state. And then when you edit anything, it will edit every single iteration or every single model state that you've got over there. Or what you can do is you can edit in Excel. As I said, if you're going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting, etc., then you can edit it via the spreadsheet as well. So right click on the model states folder, edit via spreadsheets, model your new cells, create new rows, etc., save, and then close, and then Inventor will open up with the changes you've made in Excel. Okay. Rearranging data. So, things do change in the whole sort of modeling process. So when you are, when you do create that initial model state, as I said in the setup, you've now modified things in a certain fashion or in certain sequence, and you think, oh, you know what, I actually clicked width before length, I want my length before the width. You can go into your Excel spreadsheet and you can then go and move your columns around. So, that doesn't really matter as long as it's got the correct heading. What this is also useful for is if maybe you've created that data somewhere else already in another Excel and you've got all the columns in a certain order, you need to then just reshuffle the Excel spreadsheets coming from Inventor so that it duplicates or mimics is the same as the Excel that you've created, and then you can just maybe do a copy and paste function, and then you set up all your different model states. For the Inventor side of it, so in your model states, maybe I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I find that my model 6 must be in between 2 and 3. Just drag and drop. So I'll drag that 6 up just to above 3, and then drop it, and then it'll place it for you over there. Okay, let's take a look at a quick little demo on just what we've chatted about there. Okay. So I'm just going to go and create a new part over here, and then just go quickly do a very simple design in Inventor. Okay, so we've got just a little block over here, and then I'm going to go and dimension it. Now, what I'm going to do is, as I said, naming is key. So length equals, make it 300, and then we're going to do depth, oopsie, equals, let's make it 50. Okay. Then we can extrude, and then just once again, just make sure you've got that that naming convention over there. Okay, so now what we want to do is let's maybe put some fillets on. So I'm going to fillet everything because that's maybe what we're going to suppress or not. Let's go, so just put fillets on everything, and there we go. Now what we can do is I'm going to go to my model states folder over here and right click and new. Okay, so it just tells me over here, look, you editing the scope, the edit member scope, it's going to apply just to the active member. Great, thank you very much. And then I'm going to just click on there twice, and let's go setup or initial, you know, whatever you want. And that's now editing there. You can see the little blue pencil. So what do we want to change? And remember, when we do make these changes, you want to change it in the order that you want your columns. So I'm going to go to my parameters, and in my parameters over here, length, depth, height. Okay, cool. So let's go make that 250. Let's go make that 75. And let's go make this 15. Okay, I'm going to keep my fillets as is. And then I also want to suppress or unsuppress this. But before I do that, I actually want to have in my column row the eye properties. So with the eye properties over here, I'm going to change my description or stock number. Let's make stock number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I want to suppress that. So just by suppressing it, it knows I can unsuppress it as well. But by suppressing it, it tells me that, you know, it's going to add that info as well. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go put a material on here. So let's go to gold. So I like the color, and that's it. So great. Okay, so once we've done that, that's the modeling part. That's the stuff that we really like in Inventor, the stuff we do in CAD. Now I need to start doing Excel type stuff. So you know what? Best way to go and modify these model states is in Excel. So right click on the model states folder and go to edit via spreadsheet. I'll open up my spreadsheet over here. Okay, so there we go. Let's see what's happened over here. So I've got there length, depth, height, stock number, fillet. Okay, so this is a great way to kind of do stuff. So now what I want to do is maybe I want the member name to be a function of length and depth. So what do we do there? So what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to go change this a bit because I'm going to use the concatenate function. Okay, so like I said, you know, when you're doing your Excel type stuff, you know, let's do Excel type stuff and really, you know, make it sing. So I'm just going to insert a row over here, and it's going to be, let's make member number. Member number. Okay. And now I'm going to do the concatenate. So concatenate. Concatenate. Okay. Then let's go and say it needs to be that value. Space, then that value, and let's control that area. Okay, cool. So there we go. So it says 250 by 75. I am just going to go copy this into this value over here. Finally, if that's empty, it sort of spits out an error. And then what we can do is now we can go and copy and paste. So here we go. So we've got our paste. You know, there's our Excel spreadsheet functionality. We don't have to go. I mean, you know, if you had ever worked with iParts and iAssemblies, if you had to, you know, edit in table inside Inventor, I mean, yes, there was a little bit of, you know, copying, pasting and stuff like that, but not as quickly and smooth as Excel. Okay, so once this is done, I'm going to make these 250. I'm going to make these 300. Okay, and there you can see my formula is changing, which is fantastic. 75, 80, 90, or let's make this 75 as well. 75 and 80. I could have just copied and pasted over there. So I got a 250 by 75. Okay, so I just want to do one more because the setup I'm going to leave. So I'm not going to be using that as a model state. So let's just go put this in over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Copy and paste. Okay, 250, and then let's make this 75. 250 by 80, 300 by 75, and 300 by 80. And then what we do is we'll say the cell over here must be equal to that cell. And then we can take that and copy cells. Okay. And just with the member number, it does have to be, sort of unique. So we got primary, okay, which we leave alone. Then setup, which is where we set everything up. 250 by 75, 250 by 80, 300 by 75, and 300 by 80. Okay. And then, the stock number, let's just say it goes up by 1. Okay, so full series, and there we go. So now, very, very quick, very, very easy. I'm happy with what I've got. With your material, I would, unless you know the exact naming convention in Inventor, I would I'd leave it over here. You can copy and paste it over here. I'm just going to leave it because I'm not too sure about the exact spacing, commas, etc. in your material. And then maybe let's do this as press. Okay, we can just suppress this and this one over here. Okay, so happy with that. Let's go and close. I'm going to say, I want to save your changes. Yes, I do. And it opens up Inventor. Okay, and there we go. So what we've done is we've set up the model states with the primary over here. Okay, so we left that, then we set up everything over here, and then we got 250 by 75, 80, 30, and that. And as I said, if you want to just move things and rearrange it, I can just sort of move it up and down by dragging and dropping. And as I see, I've changed the size. There's with a fillet, there's without the fillets, there's without the fillets, and there's with the fillets, and it's just changed the sizes. So there we go. So very quick, very easy. And as I said, use the Excel spreadsheet to go and modify your stuff. And then if I wanted to, I could say this is now lead. And if I go back to my spreadsheet, you'll see that it's now changed it to lead over there. Okay. So as I said, use CAD for CAD and use Excel for Excel. Okay, so model states and assemblies. So how do we do this? So model states can be sort of used for the following. So alternative assembly positions. So, what you can do, maybe you are going to change a constraint at, 0, 10, 15, 20. It's got to, show a bit of a gap in there. Then level of detail. You can do that in there as well. So if you ever work in the old level of detail, it kind of replaces that. Also levels of completion for each stage of your design that you have got assembled. Maybe, in your factory, as the product goes through, you've got all your stock material that comes in, and then it's got to start, you've got to start the whole process. Maybe this is where all the holes get drilled, and then you're going to go through and where it gets assembled, and then where it's going to get welded, and then maybe the finish. The finishes, the surfacing, how it's going to get treated. And you can have a different sort of model state as it goes through every state over there. You can also do simplification for some model states. Now, simplification, why would we want to do that? You are working with another company, maybe you do the internals and they do the enclosures. Maybe, they're doing it in sheet metal. You don't work with sheet metal. So what you want to do is you want to kind of send them your components, your parts, your CAD parts, but you don't want to have all the intellectual property in there. So to protect your IP, we can create a simplification, and that simplification can be a model state. So you'll just send that to whoever's you're going to be working with. Okay, how do we set up model states in assemblies? Pretty easy. It's the same as your parts. Create a new model state. It's going to say primary. Then you can do your setup as well. And then you can see exactly what you're going to change. Then you can go and suppress your parts or sub-assemblies, modify your constraints that you're going to do. And then you can use simplification and substitution. And the one question I get asked is, okay, so we've got all these model states in your parts, because if you're working bottom up, created all your parts, you've created your different configurations, and you go put it into your assembly. Now, your assembly, you've kind of set your parts up so that the model state, or it will should be the same as the model state in assembly, and you want to kind of drive both together. So when I drive from the top, my model state may be beginning, middle, and end. Then the parts will have a corresponding beginning, middle, and end model state, which you want to kind of have linked. And can it be done easily? Yes, it can be done very easily. And the only trick is that the model state name has to be exactly the same. Yeah. So if it's beginning, middle, and end, then in the part, then the model state name has to be beginning, middle, and end in your assembly as well. And then what you do is you go to the productivity tab in your Inventor assembly. Now, just a little thing about productivity tab. If you've never been there before, the little drop down over there, or panel, sorry, it is fantastic. It really allows you to do some it automates a lot of the stuff you might do manually. So take a look at it and just see exactly what it's got in there. Now, there you'll see their model states. Okay, link model states. So activate the model states with the same name. Now you open that up. It will basically list all the model states you've created in your assembly, and then you click on whichever model state you want to link. But so you can't do all of them, unfortunately, but you can then go and click on each one, and it will then link the model states over there. Okay, so just a quick little demo on the model states over here. Okay, so here's just an assembly that I've got over here, and I've got my model state set up. So if I wanted to go create a new model state, I'm just gonna leave it as, I'm gonna go and say just one, because I'm going to link it with my my model state in a part that I'm gonna go change. So that's one, and then let's go new, two, oopsie, two. Okay, and then what I want to do is maybe, you want to just, you'll see here that I can go and suppress these, suppresses those two little components there, so it's just suppressed and not suppressed. Okay, so if I also go and change one of the constraints, 50, there we go, and if I take that back, so you'll see there the difference. So I'm suppressing and moving components as well. Now, maybe I have a part which I want to link. So if I've got this part over here, I need to open it. So you can't edit it within the assembly. I have to open it up, and I'm going to go and create my model state. So let's go new, and I'm going to go model state 1 and model state 2, okay, just for simplicity's sake. And then in 1, I'm going to go change the material so we can actually see exactly what it's doing. So let's go down to maybe a wood. Okay, and then for 2, it's going to be, let's go choose my gold. Okay, so now let us go and back to our assembly. And now if I go to my 1 and 2, you'll see that it still looks the same. So I've got to link the two. So let's go to productivity. Okay, there's all the lovely commands that we've got. And we go to link model states. You'll see there now, it shows the model states that are listed in your assembly. And you can say, right, let's go model state 1. And there we go. You'll see an immediate change. And then we go back to link model states 2. Okay. So what it's done over here, it links the two, and then it also automatically activates that model state over there. Okay, so very, very quick and very, very easy. Okay, so iLogic. So you can animate, iLogic has got the functionality to be able to delve into the model state and start calling it for certain functions that you work out. And it's just an awesome little function I found, sort of on the Autodesk University, is that, there's an animate with iLogic over here, and this one over here is a nice little little routine that allows us to animate and go through each step of the model states. It works in both the parts and assemblies as well. So think about, you want to see how this component is created, the assembly, how is it put together. Yes, you can use your presentation file, so that is one way of doing it, but another way would be to do it with model states. And as you go through each model state, you can see exactly how it goes through it. Or maybe, with your model states, you have created different, different model states for different assembly bill of materials. Because in the model states, each model state, if you go to each one and you've suppressed components in it, you'll see that the bill of materials will be correct for that suppression state. And you can then animate going through that. Maybe the client wanted the bucket, they wanted something suppressed, or maybe they didn't want some supports of some sort, and you can just go through that. But at least with the model state, you've got your bill of materials being correct. Okay, so let's just show you how that works. Okay, so I've set up some model states in this assembly over here, and with this you'll see I've got a whole lot of model states, and as I go through each model state, you'll see how this component now starts getting built up. And I've also just snuck in there some of the different components, and also just the materials over there. So now that we've done that, let's go to iLogic. If you do not see this iLogic button over here, just click on the plus. There's your iLogic. I've created the rule there already, and then I just run the rule. It'll go pick up every single model state and show me how this gets built up. Okay, so that is it's a nice little thing that I think is quite useful, especially in the design process. Okay, so just one of the last things I want to kind of talk about is the level of detail. So if you've worked with level of detail before, you would have found that if you are in 2021 now and you've just recently gone into 2022, you'll see that level of detail has disappeared. So model states has replaced level of detail. Now level of detail was very, very, it was a very, very awesome tool to be able to see exactly sort of different states of your assembly. Also just to take stuff out of memory so that you could just sort of get on with your job a little bit easier, because there weren't so many parts, bogging the system down. So level of detail has been discontinued, but model states has taken up that mantle, and I think it's done it very, very well. If you've got a pre-2022 model with level of detail, then those will be migrated to model states. Okay, but just please be careful. Those level of details, the bill of materials, will not show correctly with suppressed parts. So that is something that was in your level of details previously. But Autodesk has done a very, very nice sort of integration with model states. There's just one little trick to it, is if you do bring it in, it'll bring in that level of detail. And if you want it to behave like model states does, so if I'm creating a model state and I've suppressed some components, if you go to your bill of materials, it will actually register 0 there as in your bill of materials. So it'll tell you that, look, there's actually 0 of these parts over here, because we know that it's suppressed and we know that you do not want it reflected in your bill of materials. And all you have to do over there is just copy it. So right click on the level of detail, copy it. I've just seen there, I've said LOD and then LOD model state copy, copied that, and now I know that's my model state copy, and my bill of materials will show correctly. So that's all you need to do. Just copy the level of detail, or the model state that has been converted from level of detail, and you can then go on with your business as if you from 2022 on, model states. There we go. Okay, so in conclusion, model states is great for ease of use. I mean, I must really reiterate this. It is very, very easy to use these model states. It's literally, change it and then, modify what you need to modify once that's done, you've got your model state. If you go back to the previous model state or your setup or your primary, you'll see there that it will change back to what it was. So very easy, and you can also visually see those changes. In iParts and iAssemblies, you kind of go to the table configuration, the Excel, you change it there, you come back to Inventor, then you might find an error here or there because you might have typed something in. So this is very manual. It's a very nice, double click, change this. You'll see the changes take place in your model. So great for ease of use. Use Excel for manipulation. Like I said, CAD is for CAD and Excel is for Excel. Let it do that. And iLogic, if you have not started looking at iLogic, take a look at it. I think it is a fantastic tool that is very underutilized in the Inventor workflow. From forms to very easy Excel sort of type functionality. If then statements. So if you are a guru on Excel and you have been doing a lot of been working out different configurations of a component in Excel just to get those calculations, you can even import that into your iLogic, and from the iLogic it will drive your model. So iLogic, absolutely fantastic for automation and inspection, as well as we saw in that in the driving of those model states. And with that, that's the end of the webinar. Thank you very, very much for attending. Are there any questions? If there are any questions, you can type it in the chat. I'll just give it a few moments. Okay, seeing there are no questions, thank you very much for attending. And yeah, great. And enjoy the rest of your day and weekend, and go on an Inventor. Thanks very much for watching.